Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Vijay and this is the third video in the SQL series. In the previous one we basically talked about primary and foreign key and we saw some properties. So in this one we are going to see some practical around it. Okay, so in order to show you the practical, I have installed a Docker and then a SQL Server Lite version through Docker because in Mac we cannot install SQL Server directly. So if you're using Windows, then the SQL Server Management Studio application is available for Windows, so you can install that. But if you're using Mac, then there is a workaround through Docker that you can install. So I'll put both the links in the description so that you guys can easily install the server in your laptop. Okay, so and also I have installed this Azure Data Explorer just to connect to the SQL Server and to run some queries. Okay, so this is how the UI look like for Data Explorer. Okay, and at the left hand side you can see that I have connected to my SQL Server. Okay, so here if you see I have only system related databases. So first let's create one database for us. Okay, so there is a command that is create a database that we can use to create the database. Okay, so let's give that database a name practice and let's run it. Okay, now let me refresh here. Okay, so you can see that that database got created. Okay, now and inside the database, as we already discussed in last videos, that we have tables. Okay, we have various objects inside database. It is not only tables, we have schemas, we have a stored procedure, all those things. Okay, so but the table is one of the important entity, okay, that we are going to discuss. So let's create two tables here. One is and just not to waste time, I have uh, those queries available here. Let me just copy those here. Okay, so what basically I am doing is I am creating two tables here. Okay, so we can create tables using create table command. We give that table a name and then in the round bracket we provide the list of columns name. Okay, so first one is the column name, first column name, then the data type of that column, that is int, and this particular keyword, it says that this column is going to be a primary key for this particular table. Okay, and in one table there should only be one primary key. Okay, then we have other columns like this. Okay, another one we have author name and then birth here. Okay, then we use insert into commands to insert some data into the table. Okay, so insert into, then that particular table name, then we provide the what all, in what all columns you want to insert the data. Since I'm going to insert the data in all the three columns, I have given all these three columns here. Then this is the another keyword values, and then we provide the data in round bracket. Okay, and then this is how I'm creating the book table here. This book ID, I am marking that as a primary key, and then I am inserting some records in book table. Okay, so let's run this one, and before that I have created my database. But if you see here in the database option, it is showing master. So I need to use this database first to create some tables there. So there is use keyword that we can use to start using that database. Okay, so let's run this one. Now you can see that my database got changed to practice. Okay, so let's run these queries and create these tables. Okay, so if you see below, both the tables got created and it inserted the rows accordingly. So if I open this one, inside the table you can see my both table got created. Okay, now my table got created. Let's query some data from these table. Okay, so in order to query the data we use select statement. Okay, and if you want to provide the column names, then you can provide the columns names by comma separated, or if you want to select all the columns you can give a star. Okay, then we use this from keyword, and from which table, that table name you have to give. Okay, so I'm selecting everything, every columns and every rows from authors table. Okay, so let's run this one. Okay, so you can see here that I have three rows inside that table, and those we can see. Okay, likewise we can select all the data from books table as well. Okay, so select a star from books. Okay, let's run these two queries. Okay, so if you see here, both the tables data we can see using select statement. Okay, now in these two tables I have just created a primary keys, but I have not linked these two tables yet, correct? So with the foreign keys we can link these two tables together. Okay, so let's do one thing. If you see these tables, then there is this author ID in the book table that is pointing to the author detail in the authors table. So these author ID, it is pointing to this authors table, correct? So let's create this relationships. Okay, so since these tables are already created, then we need to use alter command. If you're going to change something in the already created table, then we need to alter it. Okay, so in order to put the foreign key, we have this command alter table. Then what is the table name? So I'm going to put the foreign key for this book table. So what basically I'm going to do is I'm going to make this column, that is author ID for book table, as a foreign key that will point to primary key of this authors table. Okay, so that is where I'm writing that command. So alter table books. Okay, then add constraint. Since it is a constraint, so this foreign key, primary key, and then setting the default value, these we call it as a constraint. Okay, so foreign key is one of the constraints, so that is where I'm using these keywords. Okay, so alter table books, add constraint, then that constraint name, suppose foreign key fk underscore author id. Okay, then we need to point out the foreign key. So in this book table, what is going to be a foreign key? That is author ID. Okay, so let's put that author underscore ID, and it will reference to the primary key. Okay, references this authors table primary key, that is same author ID only, correct? Now let's run this one. Okay, okay, now we have establishes a relationship between these two tables. Okay, so how we can see these constraint? So there is one command in SQL server that you can use to check these constraint, what all constraint you have in your table. Okay, so uh, select star from your database, then we have something called information schema, and then we have something called table constraint. Okay, let's run this one, this query. Okay, so if you see here, you can see all the constraint that is that you have put inside your database for all the tables. So table name you can see here, and if you see here in the books table, I have created two constraint. One is primary key that I have created using create command, correct here, and then later on I have altered the table and added a foreign key. Okay, so we have linked these two tables together. Also, when we create a foreign key and link two tables together, then we have something called cascading actions. Okay, so what it tells is, suppose let me query these two tables. So what cascading action uh, says is, or tells is, suppose what will happen if I delete this record, this author ID from author table. So what will happen to this author ID that is there in books table, because currently these two are linked, correct? So if I'm deleting the author ID one from author table, then what will happen to this record? Okay, where I'm using that author ID. Okay, so by default, so these are few of the cascading actions. So let me put those here. Okay, so these are few of the cascading actions. So by default it is no action, or we can say it is restrict. So restrict in the sense, if you are going to delete this particular record, then it will not allow, because there is that author ID that is available here in the books table, correct? because we are using this particular author ID in the books table, so it will not allow to delete this record from author table. So let's try to delete this. So in order to delete any record, we use this statement delete from, then that table name authors, where author ID equal to 1. Okay, so if I'm going to delete this one, okay, so it will not allow me because there is a associated uh, rows present in the books table, because this particular author ID is being used in books table, correct? So it will not allow. So by default we have this particular cascading effect. Okay, so let's do one thing. Now let's drop this constraint, okay, and try to create a new one with this particular effect on delete cascade. So we can use again alter table command, alter table, then my table name, and drop constraint, and that constraint name, that was this one, fk underscore author id. Okay, so let me drop that constraint. Okay, and let's create the new one. Okay, so let's create the new one with this cascading effect on delete cascade. Okay, and let's create this. Okay, now it got created, and there will not be change in the data, so data will look same only. But on delete, what it will do, on delete cascade, what it will do is, suppose if I'm going to delete this particular author, then this particular author ID is present in 2 rows, correct, in the books table. Okay, so if I delete this author with this author ID, then the respective rows where those author ID are being used, those will also be deleted. Okay, so let's see that in action. So if I'm going to run this particular command again, if I'm going to delete this author where author ID is 1. Okay, so let's run this, and now if I query those 2 tables, okay, so if you see that that author ID where author ID was 1, it got deleted. Also the respective rows where those author ID was being used, that was also deleted from my books table as well. Okay, so this is how on cascade works. Okay, so now let's move forward and see another one, that is on update cascade. Okay, so again let's drop this constraint. Okay, and I'm going to add new one, that is on update. Okay, let's run this, and now let's see the data first. Okay, so on update cascade, what it will do, suppose if I'm changing the author ID, okay, for this particular author, suppose if I'm making it from 2 to 4, then whatever author ID is available in your books table, so here it is 2 and 2, so those will also be updated. Okay, so let's see that in action. So okay, so in order to update anything in a table, we use update statement, update, and then authors, set author ID to 4, where author ID equal to 1. Okay, so wherever I have, or sorry, equal to 2, wherever I have, so not wherever, so I have only one record, so this particular author ID will be updated to 4. Okay, so let's run this one. Okay, so now what happens is, if I query both the table, okay, so initially in here books table I had, sorry, in books table I had this author ID as 2, correct? Now since I changed here it to 4, so it updated the respective record in the books table as well. Okay, so it updated the author ID. So this is how update cascade works. Okay, then we have next one, set to null. Okay, so let's again drop this constraint and create the new one. Okay, where I'm setting it to on delete set null. Okay, so what will happen is, so let's first create this one. So and let's see the data. So what will happen is, suppose if I am deleting this particular author where my author ID is 3, so in books table wherever I have that author ID that is 3, so it will make that record to null. Okay, so this particular author ID will be null once I'll delete this author from authors table. Okay, so let's run that. So let me copy it. So delete from authors table where author ID is 3, correct? Let's run this one. Now let's see our data. Okay, so my record got deleted from here, and also if you see wherever I had that author ID as a 3, that it has set to null, correct? So that is what on delete set null does. Okay, then next one is on delete set default. Okay, so if we have any default constraint in a table, okay, and if you're deleting something from your like this reference table, okay, then in the referencing table that particular column will be set to default. Okay, so if there is any, suppose if you have set up some default constraint on this particular column, okay, then that will be changed to default values. Okay, since I have not discussed that default constraint here, but yeah, just for your understanding, so those default value will be set here. Okay, and yeah, this one we have already seen. Okay, so this is how these cascading effect works. So if you are doing anything with the two table where there is a link between two tables with the foreign and primary key, then how this is how these cascading effect works. Okay, so I hope you have got a better idea, and also we have seen so many commands here. We have seen create a statement, insert into, then we have seen how to alter the table, how to add the constraint, how to drop it. Okay, then we have used select statements, and we have also updated the data. So you have got a better understanding how to get started with SQL. So if you have any queries, do reach out to me, do post your queries in the comment section. Okay, so let's end this video here, and in the next one we are going to pick some other topics from SQL and we'll do some hands-on there. Okay, so do like this video, share with your friends, and if you have any queries, put that into comment section. So stay tuned and happy learning. Thank you guys.